Good to be with you, Luke, all the way from Canada. I'm glad we could get this time to hop on a call together. I just wanted to be able to share with people kind of about the app that's coming out here in a few weeks. Or if you're watching this later, it may already be live, so you can go download it right now. But I wanted to share with our family, our community, people at large, what the app is, why we're doing it, the heart behind it. And so I thought there's no better way to do that than to have a conversation with you, seeing you are kind of the magic maker behind the scenes. You got this ball rolling about a year ago. Without you, we wouldn't be in the place we are today with it. So I just kind of wanted to pick your brain for a little bit and you to share your heart. Maybe the first thing is tell us a bit about who you are, where you're at, and even how you came to know Alan, Excellencies, what all that looks like for you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Josh. You and I have been in touch the last year or so, and it's been good to get to know you. You have such a good heart for all that we're doing here, and I just appreciate working with you and getting to know you more. So thanks for having me. But yeah, so my journey with EOC, which started as Alan Hood Online, was a couple years ago. I was going through a really challenging time in my life, and I had heard a sermon from Alan from years prior, and I thought, I wonder what Alan's up to. And he had moved away from Kansas City. He was in Colorado, and he started this ministry called Alan Hood Online. And I started taking the courses and getting a little bit more involved. And my wife and I started viewing the course sessions every night together and discussing them. And then over the last couple of years, we've got involved in as a donor, and feel like we've been a part of the family and been friends with Alan and with you and Samuel. And so that's my introduction to EOC.
I love that. Well, I also love that you're not just a like from afar kind of seeing like, oh, that's all good stuff, but you took Excellencies of Christ, or you never like went down to Kansas City and sat in a class, but you actually went through Alan's original Excellencies of Christ course, which that's where EOC as a ministry kind of was birthed, because Alan has this course he's been teaching for, gosh, I guess 10, 20 years now. So you got a hold of the book, right? And you actually took that course.
I didn't read the book, but I did. I think IHOP had some sort of like a library for former courses, and I saw that one on there, and I paid for it. And I started to go through it with Alyssa. Now is actually when we had already started taking the courses. So of course a lot of the information was the same. And so it was great to be able to see it in that lens in the classroom. But I love how you and the team have been able to put it together into all of these sort of mini courses and sessions. It's been amazing.
Well, it has been a joy to do it. And I didn't get to start. I mean, back when Alan and his son Samuel started it back in 2019 or 2020, I didn't get to be at that part of the journey, but they've done an amazing job. But I remember there was about a year ago, the ministry was in a rough time. The team, Alan and Samuel and the team, we were going through a hard time. I remember we had a meeting with you, and you shared basically on your heart why this ministry matters, Excellencies of Christ matters, why the knowledge of God matters. And you read, was it the first quote from that book? Which, for anyone who's hearing, that book exists. It's the Excellencies of Christ notes, which maybe one day will actually get finished and cleaned up, and it'll be an actual book that you can buy. I know actually in Brazil it's translated into Portuguese, and it is down there. If you have that quote, why don't you read it? Because that ministered to our
Yeah,
hearts
I'll read
so
that. I have a
much.
little context too for that. So
Yeah.
the night before, I I knew things were kind of not going well for the ministry, and I just thought, in my head, I was like, okay, I know that this ministry or this message is going to go forward one way or another. If the ministry falls, it'll get revived somehow. That was sort of like my disposition towards it. And then I woke up the next morning, and there was just the Lord had touched my heart, and I was like, no, like it can't end. I just said to myself, it can't end. And I came downstairs, and Alyssa, I'm sure it was getting breakfast or something like that for the kids. I came downstairs and she's like, I know, I've seen that look, I've seen that enthusiasm 5 or 6 times before since we've been married. And I know when you come like that towards me and with all this enthusiasm, like, you're going to do it. And so I was just like, you know what? Here's why the knowledge of God to the ends of the earth is so important. We can't let this die. I don't care, this ministry die. I don't care what it takes. I don't care the cost. This message needs to go to everyone with a phone, you know? And so then from there, we set up the meeting with Alan. Joshua, you were there. Samuel was there, I was there, and Alan was there. It was the 4 of us. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's the 4 of
Yeah.
us.
And Alan was going through a very, 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 very difficult time. I know that he was at the end of his rope in some regards. And we had this beautiful session where I shared my heart for wanting to try and help keep it going financially, but also a plan to be able to continue it. And the heart around it was this one thing that had touched my heart. And I know that it touched Alan's heart years before. And I know that the Holy Spirit had lit a fire around this one topic. It's the knowledge of Jesus Christ. And so I'm going to read this, and I hope that it impacts you the same way that it impacted us, and it has continued to impact us. It says, longing for Jesus. Several years ago, I found my heart longing, lonely, and hungry for something authentic. In the depths of my soul, something was awakening and being stirred by an unknown hand, an unseen helper. My heart could barely stand the thought of another unique teaching or keen insight from one more anointed vessel. I was aching for Jesus, wanting him and him alone, undone by the piercing depths of his heart, life, and love. For years in ministry, I fed upon many other things, setting my hand to various missions. I have run enough leadership gauntlets surrounding the latest church growth fads and have had quite enough of the 3-year cycles of implementing the latest relevant approach in ministry. Enormous amounts of time, energy, and resources were spent on methods, applications, and how-tos. During those years, our churches grew by 20s and 50s, but our people remained plundered by disease, debt, despair, doubt, and deception. In the midst of it all, I ached for what the Apostle Paul called the simplicity that is in Christ, wondering if somehow the serpent had deceived me just as he had Eve, 2 Corinthians 11, 2-4. Endless debates on methodology and incessant emphasis on practical preaching with its how-tos and down-to-earth application have swept us into the seduction of compelling need and the enticement of the unique. However, little mystery and majesty concerning the person of Jesus is preached. Our taste for the eternal and the glorious fades as we exchange the burning gaze of the seraphim for the unyielding boredom of Dr. Phil's dressed in preacher's garb. O God, save us from insightful sages of our day and give us the Ancient One again. Give us that which, throughout the ages, has mystified the saints and terrorized devils. So I'm reading that, if you can picture it, with these 4 other gentlemen, and I'm not able to finish. I mean, I am weeping. Alan is weeping. I think everyone was weeping.
I think we're all weeping at that
And we
point.
had this moment of demarcation in, I feel like, the ministry, where we just said, from now on, this is, I mean, not that it wasn't our focus, but it was like, this is the focus, and this is what we're going to build as a foundation for the coming generations, the 10, 20 decades to come. So I know that it touched Alan, and it sort of, I think he felt like he could probably tell the story better, but like the Lord was speaking to him in that time of what the direction was going to be. So we all have had this very renewed sense of God's calling on the ministry, on the direction, and the focus.
I think, I mean, you just read it, but it's the deep core in all of it. It's the desire to offer something more than, I mean, Alan, when he wrote that, said it so well, but Dr. Phil garbed preachers, and it's for the knowledge of Jesus. And, you know, that's why when EOC started, those first courses were the Knowing God series. And it was about communing and knowing with God. And I mean, I remember when you read that, because I took that course, oh gosh, 10 years ago. And I read through all that. I sat through Alan's course, and of course it impacted me at the time. But then when you read that exact thing in that meeting, I was weeping again, like, oh my gosh, that's right. That's why we're doing this.
Yes.
Jesus is so worthy and he's so beautiful. And so I was so thankful, because that meeting, it really was. It was kind of this demarcation in the line in the sand moment where it's like, all right, like, no, we can't stop this. This is bigger than us. This is bigger than our circumstances, our emotions. And what's happening is Jesus has to be made known. And so the plan out of that was this app. That was kind of the start of it. For anyone who's been taking our courses prior to now, they've all lived in this ecosystem called Kajabi. And so you have to have your email and your password and your account to kind of get access. And then every time a course you want it, you have to sign up for it. And you go through this whole process, and it's worked thus far, but we're like, there's got to be a way to take down as many barriers, to take down as many walls as possible. And then a lot of we went totally free, which was a big step of faith, which was like, okay, Lord, our ministry is not going to be funded by selling classes. It's going to be 100% donor funded, but we want to make these courses free so they can get out and as far and as wide as possible. So we realized quickly, Kajabi is not going to cut it then, because there's too many barriers. Luke had the idea for this app. I mean, you said it so well when we started, like, basically you kind of everything, well, Chosen's doing it already. Kind of this bring 1 million people along, get as far and as wide as possible. So I'm curious, what was your thought behind the app? Like, what was it about the app that was the practical response to this desire to help people know Jesus?
Well, I think one was practical, right? At that time, donations were down, and we were kind of getting towards the end and having to make a decision of what we were going to do. And as much as I really have joy, and Alyssa has joy, my wife, and in continuing to support it, we need something that's more of a long-term solution. And I thought, if we can get this into an app, and we can get 1 million people to donate $1 versus, it'd be great to have $20,000 donors or something like that. But if we can get people in more of a smaller amount to share it, maybe it's one video that goes viral, and they're like, hey, this really touched my heart. I want to give $2, or I want to give $5. I want to pay it forward so that somebody else can enjoy it. I thought, the videos and the courses are so impactful because the subject matter is great. And of course, Alan's such a great teacher and a world-class communicator, but the subject matter is what's important. And I know what the Holy Spirit will do with the knowledge of Jesus and in truth and in light. And so if we can get this in front of people, the Lord's going to do his work in touching people's hearts, but we need to have more people available to be reached. Kajabi's great, but it doesn't have the same sort of shareable viral effect as an app would have. And so that was sort of the thought behind the app. We need to get more consistent donors over the scope of like having new donations. So I know I didn't really articulate that great, but that was the heart of the app.
Well, and then, I mean, and you can explain it too. After we figured that out, we were like, this is how we go to the nations. We've said it for a while, help make it free, or help make it happen, help make it free. And then we're like, well, help make it global. Now with the technology that AI is enabling in this app, it's like, wait, we could actually get this into, I should remember this. I put together about the top 12 languages in the nations, and the team that's been helping you do this, they've found a way to do that really easily.
Originally, we thought getting the app into other languages would be hundreds of thousands. I think we had a chart in, was it 2023 or something, year end, where it's like, it's going to cost $1 million or something to get this into multiple languages. But with the age of technology and of AI and our amazing team that has helped produce the app, they're natively Spanish speaking. Of course, they're bilingual, but they're a Spanish speaking team. So they have I think we have a little bit of a leg up with our first release, which is what we're going into Spanish at some point once we get the funding for it. But their plan with us is to put the videos all into an AI-driven program, which will then allow us to be able to market it to other countries, other languages. On the login of the app, it's going to be what's your preferred language. And if we have it unlocked, they're going to be able to sign up in Spanish. And everything, all of the content is going to be translated into Spanish. All of the videos are going to have, I think there's one video that you can already watch right now that's a preview for Alan, where you click it and he is speaking Spanish.
Yeah,
You
it's not
cannot
just
tell.
dubbed. It's
Yeah.
not a dub. You know, YouTube is coming out with a dub feature, but it is Alan
It is
speaking in
Alan.
Spanish
Yes.
about Jesus.
And it's not even off. The developers that are creating the app that speak Spanish tested it, and they cannot tell the difference. So, of course, he doesn't speak Spanish, but for the purpose of this going to the ends of the earth, Alan is going to speak a lot of different languages. And the cost, it's still going to carry a cost, of course, but is minuscule in comparison to what something like this would have cost even 2 years ago. So the potential for this to spread to I mean, who doesn't want to see the knowledge of Jesus in a very user-friendly app for free go to millions and millions of people across the world? And that is what the goal is.
Exactly. It's to make him known, and not just our communities, not just our churches, but in every community and church across the globe. And I think this is really, it's the closest we've ever been to start seeing that happen. So this app is it's going to have the entire course library. It's going to, like Luke said, version 2 is going to start as soon as we launch version 1. We're doing a Labor Day launch. So September 1st, that you'll be able to go and install that app, but it's going to have everything. And so you can seamlessly go between your computer, your iPad, your iPhone, and wherever you left off on one device, you can pick up on the other one. And we just want to make it free and accessible and as far and as wide as the Lord would want to proclaim the message of Jesus. For those who've already taken, the courses, I mean, like Luke, you've been so impacted. I've been so impacted. I mean, we're both here because we heard the messages before EOC was even a thing. We heard the messages of knowing Jesus and intimacy. And I mean, the Passion Week, yes. I remember taking Excellencies of Christ. The Passion Week was like, it just wrecked me.
Yeah. And it's not just about the simple gospel, which is amazing for evangelism. And we hope that this reaches people who are not churched. But it also has such a huge focus on the church today. And that's where that longing for Jesus comes in, where I think many people in the church have thought, is there something more, and it's not just about theology, which is wonderful, but it's an intimacy, and it's a learning what God is like. I think in one of the sessions, there's a quote from Tozer, like maybe you could help me with it, but the most important thing about a person is what they think about God. If they think something that's not true of God, that's very damaging for their whole life, right? And so the knowledge of the truth of what God is like and who he is, that's the subject matter, right? I'll give you an example. Every night my daughter and I go through something of the knowledge of Jesus. I put her to bed. I go through one of the short, maybe a short section of one of the chapters in the Gospels. Just the other night, we went through paying taxes to Caesar in Mark, I think it was Mark 12. And I tell her the story. I have already memorized the story because I've read it through in my devotion time. And I tell her the story. In this case, you've got the Pharisees coming to trap Jesus, and they say, "Oh, you're a wise teacher. Tell us, is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" And he says knowing their hypocrisy, he says, "Bring me a denarius." And so they bring it to him, and he says, whose inscription is on this? And they say Caesar's. And so he says, well, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to the Lord, give to God what is God's. And then they had no more questions. And so I went through that with Hallie, and then I start asking her questions. So what does this say about God? She answers, what does this say about Jesus? What does this say about what God is like? And we go through that every night. But the other night, then I had the opportunity to share something that Alan had mentioned in one of his Excellencies of Intimacy with the Son courses, where he talks about a further teaching where he says that inscription on the coin, give it to Caesar, but the inscription that's on you, give that to God. See,
Mm.
God, his inscription is on you, and you're made in his image. And so I got to spend the next 10 minutes talking about my daughter as an image bearer, as somebody who's made in the image of God, and how precious to God the human body is, and how he made her fingers and her toes, and how every single part about her is made in the image of God. Other creatures weren't made in the image of God, but she was. And at the end of the 10 minutes, Joshua, her face was just vibrant and radiant. And
And I
she's
love
just
that.
like, the knowledge of God hits a 9-year-old. And I think to myself, you know, it's not just for us in our, you know, whatever, 20s to 60s. This is about people catching fire in the knowledge of what God is like and how he's designed us, and sharing it with their kids. And can you imagine households across the world with kids that are filled with this glorious truth? And it warms my heart, but it also brings me a whole lot of great hope.
Yeah. No, Luke, thank you. I love hearing that, because it's true. We are made to be known by God, and we are made to know him. And our hope and our prayer and our longing is just that as many people across the globe can know Jesus, can meet with him and be encountered by him, can be changed in the same way that, you and I have been changed. And, it's Alan is anything extraordinary, or Excellencies of Christ is anything extraordinary, or this ministry even. It's the fact that Jesus is extraordinary. And we just want to be faithful with the peace that he's given us, that the nations might know who it is that made them and who it is that loves them. So we're just excited. This is the first step in like a 1.5 year journey for us just with the app. I mean, EOC, it's been a much longer journey, but the app, it's finally here, and it's the first iteration. There's going to be more to come, but we're just so excited to finally get to this point. And so our encouragement to you guys is, remember, Labor Day launch. It's the 1st of September. Go and download it, and then share it with your friends and your family. It's totally free. And we will hopefully it's as easy as possible to access. So give it to anyone you can. Take the courses together. We're going to have some study guides and some live journeys and some Tuesday night webinars, some additional things to go along to help us experience the app together and go on the journey together. But just share it with your friends. And then if you feel inclined to give and to help us continue to make this happen, because it's free for everyone who's taking it, but that doesn't mean it's free to make it happen. It takes a lot of donors like you, Luke, or friends and family that we have, and partners to make these things happen, to make it continue to happen. Even, I mean, I was talking to the team the other day, and the website or archive that hosts all the videos are like, hey, you've got 150 videos on here, and if you want to start adding more courses and lessons, you're going to have to up your monthly retainer cost for this website. So there are plenty of ongoing costs that come with these kinds of things and come with developing the apps. If you love it and if it's touching your heart, feel free to give. There will be plenty of ways on the app to do that. But we're just so excited and wanted to get on here and share with you guys the excitement for what's happening. Luke, thank you too, because we couldn't have done this without you being a part of this journey. And we're just honored that we get to do this together. And hopefully there's going to be many, many more stories to share and to come about what this looks like.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks you so much for having me.
Of course. All right. Well, bless you guys.